Elias Thorne was an acoustic engineer. His world was frequency, pressure, and decay. He dealt in facts, not ghosts. So when he was hired to investigate the Garrison House, a derelict mansion north of the city, he dismissed the local legends immediately. The house wasn't haunted. It was just structurally unsound, suffering from what he called catastrophic acoustic decay. The legend claimed the Garrison House was cursed not with ghosts, but with time itself. People whispered that sounds made inside its walls would sometimes vanish entirely, only to reappear months, even years later, perfectly preserved, like an echo from a different era. Elias saw it as a fascinating scientific anomaly, probably just a trick of the massive, interconnected chimney flues. He spent 2 days turning the empty house into a giant, silent laboratory. He rigged up 30 high-sensitivity microphones, placing geophones in the foundations, suspending condenser mics in the rafters, and setting omnidirectional mics all around the vast, spiraling central staircase. This staircase was the heart of the phenomenon, a dead zone where sound seemed to just evaporate. The plan was simple: record everything for 48 hours and pinpoint the source of the decaying echoes. Elias sealed himself into a makeshift sound booth in the foyer, watching a screen that tracked the input levels from every mic. For hours, the screen was flat. Nothing but the occasional, predictable groan of the old house settling. Then, it happened. A sharp, loud crack from the attic registered on the graph for a split second. Elias pulled up the audio feed for that microphone. Silence. The sound was registered, but the recording was empty. He checked the mic. Intact. He checked the wiring. Perfect. The house wasn't just delaying the sound. It was performing a selective erasure. This wasn't spooky. It was scientifically impossible. Elias the skeptic felt a jolt of professional excitement. This was a deeper mystery than he'd ever imagined. He sat waiting, watching the silent screen. Around 3:17 in the morning, the entire graph exploded. Every single microphone, from the foundation to the attic, registered a massive, simultaneous spike. It was a frequency event of immense pressure. Elias's headphones filled with nothing but static. He ripped them off. The air in the house was utterly silent, yet his body felt the residue of the impact, a dizzying pressure in his inner ear. He checked the recordings immediately. For that moment of the massive synchronized spike, the audio files were blank. They hadn't recorded a sound. They had recorded a void. Elias grabbed a handheld recorder and a thermal camera and started moving. He had to find the epicenter of this silent event. He tracked the pressure wave, which led him, predictably, yet chillingly, to the main staircase. Standing at the base of the spiraling oak steps, the air was perceptibly colder. He scanned the area with the thermal camera. Everything was neutral, except for one small section of the third step of perfect. Human-sized cold spot, glowing a sharp, impossible blue. He set the handheld recorder on the floor and focused on the blue patch. As he watched, the sound meter on his recorder, which should have been capturing his heavy breathing, began to fluctuate wildly. And then, he heard it, playing back immediately through the recorder's tiny speaker, a soft, high-pitched giggle. Elias scrambled back, knocking the recorder over. He knew, scientifically, that the mic could only pick up sounds made in its immediate vicinity. No child had been within 100 yards of this house. He picked up the device. The laugh was gone. He wasn't hearing the past. He was hearing an echo of a sound that was never made. He retreated to his booth, sweat clinging to his collar, and spent hours analyzing the data from the past day, filtering for sounds below the threshold of human hearing. He was looking for any hint of what the house was recording. He found it in the raw data stream from the staircase microphone, not at the time of the silent event, but 3 hours after the spike. A sudden, short burst of audio, perfectly captured, chillingly clear. Elias played it back. A woman screamed. A child cried out in terror. He froze, his fingers paralyzed on the controls. The terror wasn't just the sounds, it was the clarity. This wasn't ambient noise. This was a moment of profound, violent tragedy. He checked the history again. The Garrison House had been vacant and sealed for 20 years. No one could have made these sounds inside the house at 6 in the morning. He frantically searched the archives on his laptop. The house's dark secret wasn't ghosts. It was a disappearance. In 1963, Amelia Garrison and her 5-year-old son, David, had vanished. Their last known location? The staircase. The official record called it a runaway case. But Elias now realized the truth was far worse. The house hadn't recorded them leaving. It had recorded the event that caused their permanent erasure. He replayed the woman's scream and the boy's cry. He matched the high-frequency signature of the cry to a tiny, distorted echo found minutes earlier in the raw data. The chilling realization hit him. The house was holding a library of sounds, and sometimes it played them back. But if the house recorded the past, and he had heard the scream only hours after a silent void, what if the house wasn't echoing the past at all? What if it was recording the future? Elias stood up, his academic curiosity incinerated by sheer terror. He had to leave. He lunged for the foyer door. It was jammed, not locked, but fused shut, the knob refusing to turn. The house was not going to let him break its acoustic loop. Then, the monitoring screen went haywire. The input meters for all 30 microphones began to play every piece of sound they had ever absorbed, all at once. Elias covered his ears, stumbling back into the staircase hall, the center of the acoustic storm. He looked at the screen one last time. The silent event spike was returning. The graph line for every microphone climbed in perfect, terrifying unison. Elias was standing exactly on the cold spot, the third step of the staircase. This time, the audio feed did not record a void. It recorded a sound, perfectly clear, undeniably present. It was the sound of Elias's own voice, screaming in pure, agonizing terror, a sound so immediate and overwhelming it felt like a physical blow. He stumbled, realizing the horrifying truth. The house had recorded him days ago. He had heard the impossible echo of the future, and now he was finally catching up to his own memory. He wasn't a scientist investigating the tragedy. He was the conclusion of the anomaly. He was the next one the house would erase, the next sound it would delay until the silence claimed him forever. The Garrison House fell quiet again. The recording meters dropped back to 0. The house had absorbed its tenant, captured its final sound, and reset its loop. Now, all it had to do was wait for the impossible echo to return. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next one.